All right, so our second story today is what I said and what I didn't say. And this story is about this woman who has her daughter has a disability or an exceptionality, and she goes in front of a crowd of college students and kind of talks about her experiences as a parent with her daughter having these exceptionalities. The first question we have here is on the second page of the story, she discusses different support groups of people who receive the same services and who attend the same groups as her daughter. She specifically discusses that her and her husband are Puerto Rican and Black, so they're mixed. And the quote states, because of the whole semi-bohemian breastfeeding, cloth diapering, willingness to let a toddler get down and dirty and really explore playgrounds that the values we embrace, we were outsiders, culturally speaking, compared to our parenting peers in our Harlem neighborhood when my daughter first started receiving services. Yet further down the road into white upper-middle-class Manhattan we went, the more mainstream our parenting styles seemed. She continues to say that she oftentimes didn't bother with these types of upper-middle-class support groups because she found that she actually had nothing in common with them. And not only this, but she felt judged about her parenting style. So the real question here is, why is it important to understand as a person and a pre-service teacher that people of white upper-middle class have these types of advantages?
I think it's important because if one is aware of the advantages that others are receiving, this can be beneficial because then they're able to identify what services and resources these students have and try to make sure that students who aren't getting the same opportunities are still getting an equal amount of support and guidance from teachers in the classroom. Each student should be given the equal right to education.
Yes, and I guess just as a parent that they should be given the same services too, like not only her daughter, but given the same opportunities to be in these support groups and have people that they can actually relate to as well.
Yeah.
So there is a scene on page 139, and before we get into the bigger picture, the point of the scene was that the author felt accused of being a bad mom. The professor in the audience had asked multiple questions with acronyms and words that only educators might be aware of, and the author thought was, hey, I'm not a social worker, I'm just a parent feeling her way through the system. And I think this is so valuable to us as pre-service teachers, but why? So just an overview. We need to understand that parents have all sorts of careers and that they don't necessarily know what the acronyms for IEP or CSE services are. But we should definitely guide them when we know the answer instead of bombarding them and judging. What do you think about this?
I agree with what you just said. I feel that all we can do is educate them, and as long as they're there for their child and supporting them, I think that they have the best needs for the student. So if they aren't aware of that, that's what our role can be.
Yeah, and definitely including the parent in the child's education as well. Like, sure, they might not know what an IEP is, but even before going into the conversation about the IEP, discussing like what exactly goes on and what might happen to their students, because they aren't a professional, they aren't a teacher, they're not a social worker, but that a lot of these parents have never done this before, and that they're just trying to make it through the system and make their child successful. So for the last kind of conversation piece we have here, we just did step into a parent's shoes, but let's even dig a little further for the moment. The author discusses that other kids have started to notice her daughter's differences, and that some are starting to shun her. As teachers, what are ways to keep kids with exceptionalities involved with their peers? How can we teach students that ostracism isn't okay?
I think that it's important to keep these students in the classroom so that they are interacting with their peers, and I think that will help them from a social and emotional aspect. I think it's important that we don't...
Okay. Yeah, that we don't like take them out of the classroom, and that we like keep them with their peers, and that even like when we have something where like those types of kids are purposely excluded, like being like, hey, look at our classroom rules. Like our classroom rules are that everyone's involved, it's like kind of no man left behind. So I think like starting out at the beginning of the year, like having a rule or something in the classroom that's like, all right, we're all different. We all come from different backgrounds. We all have special exceptionalities. Like, one kid might play basketball really well and the next might not. But if we decide to do a basketball activity, everyone's playing. They're not leaving anyone out. So just it doesn't necessarily have to be around like even kids with exceptionalities, but just every person in the classroom is involved no matter what.
I think it's also important to view no student as an outsider and to express who they are and their strengths and value all of them.
Yeah, and even as a teacher, I think that we even have to watch like our language, like not pulling students aside and having them do different things. Like, yes, each student, like we need to differentiate, but not making it obvious for the student, because that can be that can really set a judgmental tone. Like, if I'm judging a student already, then I can guarantee that at least 3 other students have seen that and are watching what we've done. So really being the role model in the classroom and being the person who accepts every student. That was good. That was great.